Thanks for coming along, everybody. First film we're going to watch this evening is East is East. So we go ahead and do that.
East is East is the story of George Can and his mixed-race family living in Manchester in the 1970s. George and his British wife Ella run a popular local fish and chip shop, and they have 7 children, who George once brought up in the Muslim tradition. George has arranged a marriage for his eldest son Nazir, but when Nazir runs away to pursue a homosexual relationship, George disowns him. George wants his children to conform to his wishes, but this brings him into yet more conflict with his family, even with his youngest son Sajid, who he forces to be circumcised. Eventually George goes too far and his family unite against him. In the end, George's rigid and unjust adherence to Muslim tradition have driven his family away.
So, what did everyone think of East is East? Did we enjoy that movie?
Yeah, that was very good. It's interesting to see the different cultures in it, if you like, particularly in the main family where the father was Muslim and the mother looked like she was Catholic. And to see the children in the beginning, they were in like a Catholic procession. It looked like the Corpus Christi procession or one of those. And then how suddenly when the father arrived, the mother came looking for them in the procession, and the whole scene changed. The atmosphere changed. Once the father appeared, everything became, at any stage during the movie, everything became far more rigid. Fear came in big time once he appeared.
He was very strict, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Very strict Muslim father.
Not at the start so much from what I thought. Did anyone else like him at the start of the movie, the father?
He starts off as a bit likeable,
yeah,
and then as the film progresses, it turns entirely different. Yeah, by the end, I really resented him completely. Yeah, but at the start, I agree with you completely. He does start off likeable.
The scene where he abuses his wife is terrible. He just hits her, and I can't remember why. Why was?
She was defending the eldest son.
Oh yeah.
And she got him to go inside room, so he had to vent his anger on someone.
That was one of the more memorable scenes for me anyway. It was disturbing.
I'd seen it before, like when it came out, and I think then I thought it was a much happier film, and that even I saw that and I don't know why I would not think it was as serious, but this time when I watched it, I disliked him an awful lot more, and maybe it's because after in the UK reading an awful lot more about honour killings, and even here now they're saying, I mean, it's starting to be an issue, and there's different things going on there, trying how we deal with if people are trying to bring up children in a culture, but they're trying to import a culture, and then the children are finding it very difficult because they're going to school and they want to fit in, and on the other hand, so it's like one thing is acceptable at home, and you can see that exactly Ireland is facing now. What
do you think messages that sends to like children in that family setting? They're one side is orthodox or traditionalist, and the other side is modern to an extent. Like what repercussions does that have on the family?
Because as well, they mentioned that they were born in England, like they consider themselves English or British rather than Pakistani. Yeah, himself, the father, is the only one who actually considers himself Pakistani, although he considers the entire family Pakistani.
And even the son Tariq is dating an English girl, and like at one point or maybe a few points during the film, they say if the father found out, that there'd be murder,
Yeah.
Except the way he brings it up himself at the end when he's trying to argue with the father, and he says, okay, well, yeah, and so I'll do the same as you did then. Yes. I will marry a Pakistani lady, and then I'll go and get a second wife who's from here, because you're saying he's showing him, which is maybe what the message, maybe they're trying to show that religion is so hypocritical in certain ways. I mean, the father is picking and choosing which bits of the religion he wants to interpret, whereas just certainly he's not adhering to other parts of Islam.
The father actually doesn't know what he's doing to his family because he's so much brought up in that culture. And he doesn't know what his family is going through. He puts his family through a lot of confusion. The children are confused. And he's a fanatic Muslim. So he's following that rules. And in UK, it's not like that. When you're born there, it's more into like West and East meeting together. And he's also in a culture shock. So he doesn't know how to handle it.
Except he's been there for 25 years. That's my only problem. That I'm like, it's not like he arrived yesterday, you know. And
He's not accepted it.
Yeah, he's more in love with what the neighbours and the other people in his community think of him than he cares what he's actually done to his family and the repercussions of that.
What I saw from him, as much as I hated him, especially towards the end, like you said, from the beginning, is like this lovable character who's trying to do much to his family. What I saw from him is a man who is very conflicted. I don't think he didn't know the harm that he was doing to his family. He did. Because you could see there's a time you going to sit and talk to that guy. He's lamenting that he is afraid that his family is bringing shame to his community. So he's conflicted. He knows what he's doing is bad. But at the same time, he wants to be this upstanding guy, a Muslim guy in a Muslim community. So if you look towards the end of the film, when he's sitting in the cafe by himself and the wife comes in, you can actually see that although he pretended like he didn't notice the damage he was doing to his family, he knew. And at that time, he's sitting down full of emotions, thinking and actually seeing the damage that they've done to his family, coming up to him straight away. So I think he knew, but he's conflicted. He doesn't know which side to actually pick, because he can't pick the Western side because his community will say, he's no longer an upstanding Muslim, a Pakistan Muslim man, and also at the same time he can't pick his side. So he's a conflicted person. That's what I took from it.
When you buy into a concept, like, and religion is one of them, when you buy into something and accept it, even though he picked strands of it, but he was very adamant about the pieces that he had picked and stuck rigidly to them. And, you know, while he was thinking that this is the way he's going to go, because you said depending on what other people think of him, nevertheless you could see by him that he didn't feel, he wasn't in his body. It's the classic thing of his head and his body were disengaged, you know, and that he was a very unhappy man, even though he was doing what, you know, what was right in theory, but he knew it wasn't working in practice, and yet he was going with what he understood to be correct as opposed to what he felt was correct. It was quite an interesting thing to watch.
I think you are right. He was just doing what he thought was right, but most of the stuff that he was doing was not in his heart.
Any of the scenes where they're in the fish and chip shop, she's working away.
Yeah.
You don't really see him.
No.
Although he owns it, it's either him or the kids out the back.
Yeah.
It seems like he's constantly obsessed with religion and how he wants the family be portrayed, while they're actually the ones keeping the family together and keeping them afloat.
Do you think the ideals he was trying to give to the children, I mean, I know the arranged marriage is a strange one, but the you know, to give them a good family and stuff like that, like, is there something to take from that? Like, he may have been misguided, but what he was taking from religion was kind of the good points. Like, would that be a fair thing to say?
Yeah, he wasn't fanatical, and like he said, he's like, when he's arguing with Tariq and he says, you know, don't you understand, the English will never see you as, you're not one of them. So he's trying to say, he's giving him an alternative, that you have something to attach, something to be part of, and that's what he's trying to say. Look, by having family and sticking with if the British don't accept you, then you have no choice but to stick within the Pakistani community. Yeah. So you think, again, you're thinking, oh, well, he's just, you know, you don't know what kind of racism or what the father has, his experience. Like when he says, when I came, I had nothing, and now look, like he sees himself as a success. But yeah, that he might be, that it is misguided, but then still if it's causing that amount of harm.
Yeah, I think, to me, I didn't see him. I think he became a fanatic towards the end, especially when he told his daughter to start wearing Pakistan dressing when she's not at school. But you could see from the beginning, even his dressing, I didn't see him in any kind of dressing, unless if he's going to the mosque. But all the time he's dressed in Western. So he kind of liked the Western life, was Western civilization, from the dressing, everything in his house. You couldn't see, you didn't see much of the Muslim fanatic guy. But at the end, towards the end, I think because he wanted now to show that I'm the boss. He started imposing this, say this is how you dress, this is how you're going to talk, and this is how you're just going to follow everything that I say. So to me, I don't think he was a fanatic, but like I said from the beginning, I still see him as a conflicted person. Yes, there is a little bit of the racism that he experienced, which he's afraid might come to haunt his children. So he's trying to protect them from that as well. But at the same time, I think his problem was his community, his Muslim community was the major problem.
I found the young child who hadn't been circumcised, or that was humorous kind of scene, but also a bit frustrating, like, because I found like he wasn't told once why or where it came from, this practice, and to be honest, I'm not entirely sure myself. That must have been terrifying.
Actually, that was interesting because with the mother, I thought, first of all, I thought she was going to, that's where she was going to stand up and assert herself. But she didn't. And then afterwards, when she was talking to, was it her friend or her sister who lived next door? And she was, you could see that she had regret for putting the child through this pain. And I thought to myself, now she's going to stand up, you know, but she didn't either, you know. So I thought that was interesting because you can see that, you know, she is a powerful person, you know. It's certainly the character is in the movie, but it didn't happen. I thought that was interesting.
But to me, I think she did stand up because from the beginning she was really strong. She stood up to him but I think the issue of domestic violence is the one that broke her, because after the domestic violence, she had to only just follow what he wanted to say or wanted to do. But from the beginning, she was standing up to him, which was, initially when the film started, I actually thought, oh, she's actually the one who is wearing the trousers. But later on, I saw that no. So I think this concept of domestic violence, when he brought domestic violence into it, that's when he broke her.
I thought that once the physical abuse started happening, his character couldn't be redeemed at all. And I felt that, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but at the end, like, I thought that maybe the audience is supposed to, it's the intention to feel like a bit of remorse for him, but I just didn't at all. Yeah, once that happened, there was no going back, I found, for the character.
What did you think of the other characters, the man across the road who was pretty much racist to them, and the young boy attitude as well? He was saying hello to him, and they're interesting characters.
I think to me it shows generational differences, because this little boy is accepting of these foreigners, so to say, but the grandpa is not accepting them. So that's what I took from that scene of the.
And is that fear, or?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, usually issues to do with racism or anything, is a lot of it is just fear of the unknown, because you are growing up in a community where you know each other, you look the same, you talk, or even your couch is just the same, and then somebody or some people from somewhere just comes in, they do something totally different, the language is different, the way they dress sometimes is different. So it's the fear of the unknown sometimes which creeps into people, and then the only way to address that is to resist and retreat into some kind of a shell, and then the exhibit is the racism that comes out of it.
Okay, guys. The next film we're going to watch is the Magdalene sisters, about the Magdalene laundries. So we'll have a quick watch here just to remind ourselves of it.
The Magdalene sisters tells the story of 3 women cast out by their families and society for crimes they did not commit. Taken to the Magdalene laundries, the women are forced by the nuns to work beyond human endurance to redeem themselves of the sins they have allegedly committed. Each woman suffers unspeakable cruelty and violence from the sadistic and merciless nuns. The women resolve to escape the laundry and the tyranny of a hypocritical church. Eventually, each of the women manage to escape to a better life, although their experiences of the laundry have left permanent emotional scars.
Well, I won't ask did everyone enjoy that, but how do you feel after watching that movie?
I thought it was a good movie with a good message, but it was disturbing. I found it hard to watch. Like, I nearly didn't watch it all, but I said I'd sit through the whole lot of it. The way they were treated was just unforgivable.
I was left angry, I think,
Yeah.
was my main feeling. What depiction of Ireland did you get from the film?
Male domination what stood out for me. It actually, and like you, anger was my feeling watching it. It was, you know, in the very first scene, the wedding scene, where the girl was raped by her cousin, and then this chat that went on downstairs, the chat went on, the whispers really was amongst, it looked like her sister went and told her dad or told some other older man, who then, the men had the discussion and the men decided her fate, basically. And then one of the other characters, it was the priest, or was it the same girl, the priest called another man to bring her to the Magdalene laundry. So the men seemed to have all the power, make the decisions, and the women were just somewhere in the background. You know, they were definitely second-class citizens. And even with the nuns, who were all powerful in their own, you know, little bubble, if you like, nevertheless, they succumbed to the power of the priest, who was a man. So it was quite an interesting thing to watch, I thought.
If there is ever there a film that made me angry, that was that film. I was really angry, especially the last, towards the last scene when that girl died of anorexia. It actually made me tear a little bit, rather than just angry, because they wasted a life for absolutely no reason. And it's to me, it's a film that brought all the emotions, smiles, hope, and fear and anger at the same time.
I think one scene was, it was Margaret, the bit where she managed to, I think there was a sports day going on, and she managed to get out, and she was free, but she actually couldn't leave.
Exactly.
She was institutionalised. She was just so used to...
She was a prisoner at that stage.
Oh, the fear scene, the other one, when she did escape and the father brought her back and beat her in front of the nuns. So I was thinking, is she thinking, well, I don't have, like, if I get out now, where do I go? Because she's thinking if that girl's father could bring her back and then beat her like that, then she was probably thinking, well, her father was the one as well. That was the main person to decide. You know, he allowed the priest to come. And
But I think that, I think the fear of being trapped in that place was a lot worse than a fear of being beaten. I mean, that place was like hell. It was so...
Yeah,
it was just unbelievable.
I think it was more the fear of, you could maybe make it home to your parents, but they're just going to bring you back there. Like, so where can you go? Like, and what choices do you have then? Because you've no money or no clothes, so how are you going to earn money, and what are you going to do? And that brings up other questions, like, what did you think of the laundry itself, like how it was filmed? Like,
because it shows you the money, like what I found very interesting is like the boxes of money originally, and then the thing about the key in the safe. And that's the bit that I suppose now that I'm thinking, the Vatican, the Catholic Church, it still has so many unanswered questions.
It's kind of, you go into that head process, you know, like the last movie we watched, you know, when you are not in your body, the nuns aren't thinking about the feelings anymore. They're thinking about this image of keeping them pure, or keeping these girls on a certain line, in a certain line, I should say. So they're not, it's almost to a certain extent, they've taken on a role as opposed to being a person, you know, who they are. And the interesting thing about that is it certainly used to be, I don't know what it's like now, but nuns took on a name when they went into a convent. So if you were Mary, you became Sister Patrick or whatever you became. So you actually kind of lost your identity to a certain extent. So it's, you know, you became a different, you took on a role. You went into literally dressed in garb. You didn't become Mary anymore. I suppose when you were talking about the fear there, what struck me was when that Margaret was finally getting out, her brother came to take her home, you know, and she was powerful. She stood up to the nun, and she wasn't going to move. And all the nun had to do was to, as you say, the fear was instilled in her, to threaten her, and she fell on her knees. It was just, you know, that made me angry, I have to say, to watch that.
Yes.
You know?
Because I actually thought she was going to punch her or something, but she did the opposite. She fell down on her knees. And something as well that I noticed, which probably was not in the discussion when this issue was discussed, was that the role that families played in bringing those women to that awful place. Because the discussion was like, it was only about the Catholic churches, if they were just going to in the mass and then grab all the ladies and put them there. But a lot of them were the families or their communities who actually brought them there. So I think it was a place where families felt like if they don't want the responsibility of looking after a child, or if they think whatever, the humiliation of the family, like we were saying, they just go and dump them there and then forget about them. And the only time that we realized that there were some people within the families who were thinking about them is when the Margaret's brother came back to get it. That's the only point in time that I saw a family playing a part in trying to free them. But everything, it was between the families, the community, and the government, all knowing what was happening and then just saying, not our problem.
I like the head nun, she goes into a big conversation, all about, well, men are going to be tempted, but it's up to, you know, all men are sinners, all men, like, they have no choice, they can't help themselves, and that's what she's saying, it's up to the women to decide, whatever. But again,
I think she said it was to remove the temptation, and the only way to remove it was to put them into the laundries.
My perspective about nuns were like, you know, oh, they're going to be humanity and they're going to be taken care of. And sometimes I used to even say, like, I don't know how they give their lives to God, you know, and sacrifice their whole lives. But when I saw this movie, I was crying the whole movie. Because the way they treat them, even taking off the hair of the girls and even making them stand there, it's terrible, you know, it's humiliation.
It was
and
like but like sexual humiliation. So they couldn't tempt because they'd be so, not self-conscious, but so down on themselves that they could see no alternative, like no sex life whatsoever.
And they were playing with them. They were calling, like, saying sadistic. Who was the, you know, it's hard to say.
Because it was not men, it was not men there, but it was the nuns doing it to them, you know, instead of helping the women and rehabilitating them, because they have lost their children as well. Because each one had left their children and, you know, they couldn't meet. So the women were really mentally so upset. And where would they land up? So here they're coming, that the nuns would help them out, but it is sad that they had no help.
I can't get over the fact that boys and men, like, it was okay for them, but for young girls.
They have industrial skills.
Oh, did they?
Okay. And the boy says, Brendan, when you see him with the key when he's trying to help her escape, and then he says, he shouts to him, he's like, my brother was taken for 6 years, he got for taking apples, and he's thinking, oh my God, if he got 6 years put away, probably in industrial school. So it's just the fear, and that's why even though he wants to help her, he decides he can't and gets on his bike and heads off.
And I think that's how the country's changed so much since. It's the fear of the church now, you know, and this generation now who is just afraid of it, and they just aren't buying into it at all, just because of complete fear.
I thought that was interesting to watch it when you're talking about the power of the church there. Do you know the scene at the Corpus Christi procession where people are chatting whatever they're watching, and then when the girls come along and they're blue and white, you can feel there's a silence. And then when they get to the part where, you know, the priest, one of them has starched his collar or done something with it, but when he begins to, you know, act out and take off his clothes and that, the whole congregation, in other words, the community, they're just watching it, but they're almost like they're disempowered as well. Nobody's saying anything. They're so under the control of this belief system, which is the Catholic Church in the movie, that, as you say, they're immobilized. Again, it's like like Margaret, when she's leaving the convent, that's what I spoke about a moment ago, and the nun has only to say one thing to her, she falls on her knees, she loses her power. It's like they're under a spell. It's a power, it's a huge thing, isn't it? A mindset that people were under in this country.
Do you think the church has any way of coming back from this, or to feature more prominent in Irish life nowadays? I mean, like, I don't go to Mass, it has no place in my life, but is there a place for it in society? Even, like, can that be a mistake and they move on, or?
Well, it seems they say that the only growing numbers in the Catholic Church at the moment are the Polish community. I can't imagine within, like, the Irish community, as in Irish people who are saying that, and I think it's because all of this hasn't, when you talk to most people, all the tribunals, nobody is happy still with the outcome. They don't feel the Catholic Church within Ireland or the Vatican has apologised. And the fact that, you know, by transferring numerous assets worth billions all over the world so that they couldn't be sued for that. And the arrogant, you know, that's it, there's no remorse. So whatever, by printing a couple of things saying, oh, we are sorry, or whatever else, or a few strong characters, and that, you know, I'm not saying they're not all the same and whatever else, and I work with priests in the community, and they're very, you know, they seem very, very genuine and very much involved and whatever else, and non-judgmental. But I think it's going to take a long time. It's like things have to go maybe the other extreme till people feel that it has very little control. That'll be a choice thing to go back.
The trust is broken. And it's very difficult to build that trust back on religion again. So It will take a long time. Whatever explanation anyone gives, it's not going to help.
But as well, I actually do feel sorry for a lot of the like devout Catholics and a lot of the priests who would have lived a nice and now even their image of them is damaging. Do you know, like fair enough, we could show the Magdalene sisters to everyone, but it doesn't benefit them in any way. They're just going to be stigmatized against more, even though that they mightn't have anything to do with it and they were completely against it.
I suppose it's seeing that they're part of a hierarchy, and the problem is what a lot of them would admit to is that the same thing. If they could even see maybe one or two of the nuns that weren't as bad, that if you stand out, then you're victimised. So it was better just to, you know, be a sheep and follow the line. But it's really not good. Like when it's children or younger, you know, that's it. They were it's vulnerable people that were mistreated in the film. And so is it right for anybody to stay quiet, to protect themselves in that situation? And that's the problem.
Probably for them to become nuns, they went through certain traumatic events as well, for them to graduate to be nuns. So there is something that we didn't see, the way how somebody becomes a nun and how they qualify, the training and everything. We didn't see that. So to me, I think there was indoctrination from the nuns themselves, which they were afraid, even though they projected fear into those girls. But I think themselves, they were afraid of something which we didn't see, which was the hierarchy of the Catholic Church.
I think it was maybe going to hell. That seemed to be something that I remember that old woman who had seen, was it Rose, and she was with the boy.
Yes.
That was genuine terror that she had to tell, otherwise she'd end up in hell. Like to fear that and believe it, like is palpable. I imagine.
It's so destructive. Yeah. In this case, it just shows one side of religion that's completely, you know.
It wasn't trying to be. The film, I suppose, was made to see in all the negative aspects. That's it. It's not trying to give a balanced side in any shape or form, and especially by showing, I think that's it, by showing the money side all, and that they're given free labour. You see, you know, they're working all the time, and then you just hear the prayers being read in the background. That's it. It's like you said, indoctrination, because it's just constantly the Bible is there in the background all the time.
Thanks very much for coming, and we're going to leave it there for today.